the Judicial Service Commission has advised President Cyril Ramaphosa to suspend 2 judges. The one judge, Tshifhiwa Maumela, is currently presiding over the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial, and the trial around the circumstances of the death of the Bafana Bafana star is set to resume shortly. The other is a judge also from the Gauteng Division of the High Court, Judge Nomonde Mngqibisa-Thusi. The recommendations are related to their failure to deliver judgments. To discuss, we're joined by Research and Advocacy Officer from Judges Matter, that's Mbekezeli Benjamin. We're also joined by legal analyst Mpumelelo Zikalala. Great to have you with us both. Let me start with you, Mbekezeli. The JSC has released a statement saying it decided to ask for the Chief Justice to appoint a tribunal here, and in the meantime to ask the President to suspend the 2 judges. I don't remember seeing this often. How unusual is this sort of request?
Good evening, Francis, and to the viewer and Mr. Zikalala as well. Well, it's not unusual at all. We've seen before judges who have been placed on suspension and who have been disciplined by the JSC but for failing to deliver judgments. On my count, I know at least 4 judges who've gone through this same process of being put before a tribunal for failure to deliver judgments on time.
And what has happened in those cases? What was the end result?
So in 3 of the cases, those judges were given an order to apologize to the litigants with an undertaking to deliver those outstanding judgments. In one of the cases, I think it was Judge Van Zyl from KwaZulu-Natal, he was also given a fine in addition to an order that he apologized for failing to deliver the judgments. So in as much as the charge against them is quite serious, the sanction is not the gravest of sanctions or the ultimate sanction, which is impeachment and removal from office.
All right, so that is the highly unusual case. The judges can come back, but there's some sort of censure. Mpumelelo, it will be another spanner in the works, and we've had so many spanner in the works already for the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial, surely, if the judge presiding over that matter is placed on suspension.
Definitely, because it's going to cause endless delays, but those delays can be prevented if you say to the judge, Judge, can you please recuse yourself now at this early stage? We've only about 3 or 4 witnesses that have testified. Do not let the rest of the trial continue when there are certain things in which are bound to require your attention at a later stage. So let's replace you with someone else. It may mean that the 3 witnesses that have already been into the witness box will then have to come back. Let's suffer that consequence now rather than suffering a technical application that can be made at a later stage. Certain individuals pleading irregularities, you being not available due to attending to your side matters, or whether after suspension you're not being available at all. Let's also remember that this matter has been 10 years in the running, for a very long time before the first witness went into the witness box. So to prevent those endless delays, let's get a new judge who's going to come in and let the new judge deal with this matter.
All right, we'll see how it plays out. And Mbekezeli, we've spoken about examples, but is the JSC right here to deal with this with seriousness? It's often said justice delayed is justice denied. We don't know who has been prejudiced, but surely, no doubt it can cause harm if judgments are reserved for too long. People's lives hang in the balance.
Absolutely, Francis. And in fact, the JSC, I think, took a while to come to this decision. We had been hoping that they would take this decision much earlier and send a message to judges that they need also to be accountable to their duties and perform their duties as much as possible. And I must emphasize here that it's the vast majority of our judges do perform in terms of the norms and standards, but we do need to see action being taken against the few that don't. And so this is a welcome development. Of course, this is not to say that the judges won't have an explanation why. I think the tribunal will reveal what kind of explanations they have for the delays in delivering the judgment. But like you said, it does cause a lot of harm on the people who are waiting for the judgment. Some of them include monies that people are owed. It includes people's financial affairs, it includes their family affairs. And so it's not light that we take this decision, and the JSC does need to now follow through with the decision. I just want to add a little bit of detail that the JSC also added in their statement to say, even during the suspension, the two judges will have to deal with any pending cases that they have before them. So to prevent harm and further delays to the cases that they have before them, they still are still under the obligation to finalize the cases that they've already started and that they were not able to finalize, but they may not take on any new cases from the date of the suspension once it is confirmed by the president.
All right, so they will have a chance, presumably, to give their case. You said that'll play out. In Mpumelelo, surely they could say the system is overloaded. We have heard that. Could the judges argue that they've simply been overworked?
There are reasonable delays, and then there are delays which are not reasonable at all. To wait for a judgment for plus minus 2 or 3 years is not something which is nice and not something which should be acceptable. We all receive pressures from the various positions that we occupy, but we need to deliver nonetheless. Worst of all, when it comes to them, it is constitutional provision and constitutional rights which have been contravened. In civil matters, Section 34 gives me access to a court, and part of that is to be given judgment within the reasonable amount of time. So if I'm going to wait for 12 months or even more than that before I have finality in my matter, certainly my rights have been compromised. When it comes to criminal matters, Section 35 says that the trial must start and end within a reasonable amount of time, and the ending of the trial actually means that I receive a judgment and receive a decision whether I'm guilty or not. So if you are going to not do your job, which is basically what the tribunal is saying, and saying to the president, Mr. President, the way in which we're going to monitor the performance of these judges is whether are they able to deliver the judgment as and when they are required to do so. And if they fail to do so for such large amounts of time, please intervene, because they are slowing down the access to justice. They are slowing down the justice in which many South Africans are looking for. And let's remove them if needs be, so that we can have efficient individuals that will be able to continue and move on.
Yeah. Final question to Mbekezeli. I mean, if we talk about the Senzo Meyiwa case, it did get very complicated. The people in the dock changing lawyers all the time. An issue between the judge and one of the lawyers. I guess a reasonable time frame is based on how complex or simple a certain matter is. Is that correct? It's a case-on-case basis. And also, do judges get a reputation? Do the corridors talk about judges that really seem to take their time?
Yes, so the norms and standards for the performance of judicial functions say that every effort must be made to finalize a judgment within 3 months of the last hearing. So if the hearing was, let's say, in May, or in March, I should rather say, then the judgment must be delivered by June, so in the 3-month period. But we do understand, though, that judges are overworked. Like you said, in Pretoria, for example, we know that there's a huge shortage of judges. There's also a huge amount of workload that the judges are facing. They don't always have access to the libraries that they need. They don't have researchers available to them. If we go to the Constitutional Court, each judge of the Constitutional Court has 3 researchers assigned to them. But when you go to Pretoria, there are 45 judges who have to share 6 researchers amongst them. So they don't always have all the resources available to do their job as efficiently as expected. However, like Mr. Zikalala said, to wait for 2 years for a judgment to be delivered is beyond reasonable. Let's say if you are in a labor matter, the law sets a maximum compensation if you've been unfairly dismissed. That maximum compensation is for 2 years. So if a judgment takes more than the 2 years that you were dismissed, that means for all the other time, you will get 0 compensation. And that's not fair. So that's the difficulty in this, that it has real harms on real people, in as much as we understand that judges are under a tremendous amount of pressure, and many of them, like I said, try to do their job in as reasonable a time as possible.
Indeed, you can imagine the frustration. Thank you very much. We'll see if the president takes up this recommendation and what happens in the Senzo Meyiwa case. That's the big focus. That was Research and Advocacy Officer from Judges Matter, Mbekezeli Benjamin, legal analyst Mpumelelo Zikalala.